Okay, good morning. Welcome to the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners check-in for this Thursday, August 26, 2021. It's 10:03 a.m. I'm Ty Menser, Chair of the Board. My left is the Vice Chair, Commissioner Gary Edwards, and to his left is the County Manager, Miro Chavez. Through our Zoom platform, we have Assistant County Manager and our Budget Czar, Robin Campbell, and the public can follow along on our YouTube channel. We have an hour and a half to cover miscellaneous items. Commissioner Carolina Mejia is excused this morning. And so we'll start with item 1, general fund projections, some information from the budget team, and this goes to Robin, I would imagine?
Yeah, it goes to Robin. Also, it's not included in your agenda, the commission's item. I handed over a copy of the draft American Rescue Plan. And we're just going to introduce this item to you, just to give you time to review it. And I will bring on Tuesday morning for further conversation on that. So that's a little bit of a change on the agenda you have today.
So do we want to start with the budget and
Robin,
then go to the rest?
Can you start again?
So can you hear me?
Yep, we're good.
Oh, good. Okay, good. So sorry I can't be with you in person today. So we'll start with the budget and then we'll talk about the rescue plan, right? I'm going to share my screen and we are going to look at the general fund projections for 2021 and then into the future. And you have 2 documents today. The first should look like this, the general fund financial status report. I'm not going to go deep into these reports because that's what we'll be doing the first full week of September during your budget work sessions, when we'll present the agency request 22-23 biennium budget. But I did want to give you just a quick peek look at what's coming when we sit down on September 8th and 9th. These reports should look familiar to you. The first page that I think I need to share my screen share. So this should be the general fund financial status report on your screen. The adjustments are through August 10th for revenue, or through the end of July, and the expenditures are through the end of June. They're the second quarter projections that we have from our offices and departments. What you'll see is that just some high level things to note. Property tax is coming in strong. I haven't checked recently with the treasurer. The last time I heard him comment on this is he was anticipating 99% collection, but we're actually projecting that we will collect 99.5% of the budgeted amount. So property tax revenue is coming in just right on track. Sales tax is coming in just phenomenally high. Year to date, we are year over year growth of 25%. And as I've shared with Ramiro, in the 35 years I've been working in finance in the state of Washington, I have never seen anything quite like this. We're looking at trying to dissect the numbers to see why sales tax might be coming in so strongly. We did expect some high numbers when you compare to March, April, May of last year, which was the a few months where we took a economic dip. But the rest of the months are also quite strong, and I'll have a sales tax analysis for you on September 8th. But right now, retail and construction are the strongest sectors. Retail being extremely strong and really driving the growth factor. We think it's due to stimulus payments and pent-up demand and currently pretty low unemployment in Thurston County. Those are the main driving factors behind it, according to the economists.
Robin, Commissioner Edwards has a question.
Yep.
I guess we're gonna have some dialogue here, a little bit, rather than just straight information out to us, I'm hoping. Going back to property tax, how do we get a 3% increase when that state law business, talks about 1% increase? And I'm specifically asking about property tax because I've already had a bunch of calls from constituents that my taxes are going crazy, what's going on and all that, because apparently in the mail yesterday, folks received their notices, some folks, I guess. I don't know if everybody did. I see some heads nodding, so. Anyway, so could you kind of give us a little breakdown of why that's at 3%? I realize we get something from new construction, but just trying to figure it out. Why is 3%? I guess I'd think about 1.5% with new construction myself, just looking at it without knowing about it. So that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, so you've jumped to a different document than the one that I was currently sharing. So let me do that so people can follow.
The one I've got says 3%, the one I just got from you.
This one right here?
No, the previous one, he was looking.
No, I'm not looking at previous, I'm looking at,
This one, right?
I'm looking at this one.
Oh, you're jumping into that report.
Well, I mean, it shows 3%, that's all I'm just wondering.
This report.
Okay.
I'm trying to get verification of what you're seeing on your screen.
Yeah, on the upper left corner, it says property tax at 3%.
Yeah, that's all
Right
I'm
here.
wondering about.
Right there.
Okay, so just, I'm happy to answer that question, Commissioner. I just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page.
Okay.
You had changed documents. So on this page, property tax is assumed to be a 3% growth rate in the future. 1% is what the board is allowed to raise councilmatic above last year's levy. And you have traditionally done that, and I have assumed that you, the board, will continue to do the full 1% increase in property tax.
Okay.
The other 2% is driven by new construction. And currently we see strong new construction in Thurston County. Last year, new construction values were over $700 million. We take that amount, we apply last year's property tax rate to that amount, and that computation is added to our levy. And I've made the assumption, just based on what I see going on in our community as far as permits nationally, that we would have 10% growth in new construction this year. That's possibly conservative. I reached out to the assessor, but he says it's too early to give me any indication of what we might actually be doing. So 10% assumed in 2022. When you add that to the 1% levy lift, that's worth roughly $750,000. Then we do the lift, and overall property tax levy increases by about 3%. Now, the way this plays out on individuals' property taxes does not mean that their tax is going to go up by 3%. All it means is that the levy has increased by 3%. The computation of any individual's share of that levy is based on the value of their property compared to the total value of property in the county. And whatever that percentage works out to be, that's how we get this rate. It's applied to the value of their property. We back into the rate. And so their property tax is dependent on what their values did up or down compared to the total value of property in Thurston County.
Because Robin, just to flesh that out to make sure I got it. So, because if everybody's property went up at kind of the exact same proportion, the rate would just fall and everybody would basically see the same small 1% increase or whatever. But if your property in for some particular reason shoots up higher than your neighbors or other areas of the county, then you could see a higher increase. Is that accurate?
That is, yes, I believe that's true.
Okay.
In a levy rate, as the property values increases, the levy rate decreases.
Right, we just dropped the rate.
Right, and you know, although the maximum is $1.80, and I don't know if you had that numbers to where we are right now.
We're gonna be under $1 pretty quick.
Yeah,
Because everybody's assessment's
Hovering.
going way up,
Yeah.
but the rate dropped.
The new rate is something like $1.05 per thousand.
Close to $1. Unbelievable.
Okay, then,
Yeah,
oh,
been
okay,
dropping
go ahead.
steadily.
No, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
My question on the sales tax is, things like annexations and stuff, they'll cut that down a little bit. Not that we have a lot of that. We had that one issue over at Lacey. But 25%, even that surpasses my bubble projection that I've been talking about for a couple of years. So can you get into that a little bit, just a tiny bit?
So that's what I was already saying, Commissioner. I've never seen anything like this, and the economists are saying that it is stimulus payments, pent up demand for being able to spend. Where as a society, we like to spend our money. And right now we're tired of holding on to it. We're tired of being stuck in our homes. So people are spending. That's pent up demand. And we're tired of waiting to buy stuff. So we're buying it now in large numbers. And then the other factor is that our unemployment rate is pretty low right now. It's not at record lows. It's not quite as low as it was before the recession, but it's still pretty darn low. So all of those things combined appear to be driving up retail sales, and that's what's driving the 25%.
Okay, as we move forward in this process, any chance we could when we get the information, we could have that show, I think you mentioned year to date, it was up so much or something. So we'd have a comparison. So at least we could explain to our constituents when we're talking about it, what's going on.
Yes, Commissioner,
Okay.
I will have a sales tax analysis for you on September 8th.
Okay, thank you. Good.
I had not planned to present budget information to you this morning, but
No, that's fine.
I had some early information and it's good enough to not hold.
Okay, no, good enough, thank you.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt, go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm happy to take your questions. So since we've shifted to this worksheet instead of the other, the bottom line in the other is that we're going to have a substantial ending fund balance this year. And when we add lost revenue from the American Recovery Act, which you've seen that I've done here, and I'll try to make this the numbers to focus on a little bigger. See if we can stay. So here's the revenue you see on the worksheet you have. Here I've added the lost revenue calculation from the American Rescue Plan, the recovery fund money that the county can claim immediately. So our revenue is projected to be a little over 117 million. Your adopted budget as of the second quarter is 116 million, just over that. And offices and departments are projecting to underspend that appropriation by $2.4 million. So the spend is less than revenue, which is a very good thing. And we anticipate an ending fund balance this year of $32.8 million, which is very substantial. But when we project into the future, we've already talked a little bit about I'm gonna decrease this a little so I don't lose my,
Robin, why does that 32.7 not match the 30.2 from the previous sheet?
because I have added this lost recovery fund revenue.
Okay. Yep, I see that.
Yep, so that's an addition to the projection for the year end that I added in the forecast.
Here, Robin, on
Okay.
the reversion, and you have a 2,393,000. Considering some of the offices and departments have not submitted a financial plan, could that be a little bit higher?
It is a little bit higher. Just this morning, and I was going to share this with the board, I received the numbers from the sheriff's office, and combined, the sheriff is going to underspend approximately $660,000 between law enforcement and corrections. So there'll be an additional $650,000 added. So we're going to end at over $33 million. If everything plays out the way it looks like right now,
Right.
Could be a little more or less, but we're going to be in that range when the year ends.
All right, thank you.
Right. So the looking ahead then, property tax, I've assumed growth at 3% as we've discussed, and that is built into the budget system already. Sales tax, I don't think that at the end of the year we'll see 25% growth. I think that is in part super high because of those 3 months compared to last year when we had the downturn. But I am projecting that by the end of the year, we will be at a 17% growth rate. That is going to taper off over time. It just can't possibly continue like this. And the state economists are saying it's going to take a fairly sharp drop in future years. I didn't quite follow the state. I assumed only 10% growth in 22 and then dropped it down to what for the county is a very respectable 5% growth rate that is in keeping with our prior years before we started down the bubble path. So that's the growth that's built in for sales tax. The offices and departments have entered revenue adjustments into the budget system. These are early numbers for other types of revenue. That's why they are in orange, because the budget team is still reviewing all of the budget entries in Questica. So these numbers could change, but probably not by a lot. You see a sharp decrease. And the early version that you received from Romero a few days ago had a negative $4 million for one-time adjustments. That is definitely reflected now in the system. So you'll see I don't have that $4 million placeholder anymore. Instead, I have the numbers that people actually entered for the budget.
Robin,
Yeah.
can I ask you something on that?
Yes, sir.
On the sales tax, when you give us our information, is this going to have, I know it doesn't directly affect us, but I'm kind of curious in talking with citizens that are the municipalities showing not quite the growth that we're showing on sales tax?
Not quite, Commissioner, but pretty significant growth all the same and the same type of pattern that we're seeing.
Same thing, huh?
Even the state is seeing that a significant increase in sales tax.
I asked the same question.
Oh, did you?
yesterday,
So,
Robin.
yes.
Yeah, I was trying to ferret it out. Like,
Yeah, right,
is this-
what's going on, you know, you balance it a little bit.
So, and in fact,
Yeah.
this morning I sent an email to city managers.
Okay, so could we maybe get a little of that information?
Asking if they want to share.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's right on the state record, you know, I mean, it's there.
To share from their perspective, you know, the year over year, sales tax increases. I have a point of comparison. I asked him not to share, I'm not interested in the actual number, but actual on the percentage. So hopefully I can get that information before
Well,
the following week.
Isn't the actual number posted, I think, isn't it? Just the
It's
same as ours.
difficult to get from Department of Revenue.
Yeah, but I
We
mean,
have
it's coming.
asked them- Yeah, we've been working on it for quite some time,
Okay.
Commissioner.
Okay,
Robin was talking about how we can sort of project it based on the, we get the 15%. So
Right,
we can
that's
use
what I'm-
that to calculate what the cities are, if that piece is growing.
that's kind of
Slower.
exactly what I'm looking,
Yeah, because if it's
Right.
point of delivery, if it's all point of delivery, we can count on that.
right,
If
that's,
it's not, then we can't.
then something else is going on. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay,
Great. So, yeah, we're
Thank you.
working on that too. Sure. I'm trying to figure this out along with everyone else. I would love to have an answer to this kind of growth. All right. So moving on in the worksheet, I have added an assumption for lost revenue in the future. Because we are receiving money from the state, additional money that we've never received before, in the form of, we're getting that law and justice, $1 million. That's one time. We're getting an extreme amount of city county assistance. Normally we receive somewhere in the $1.5 to $1.8 million range. This year, we're getting $4 million from the state for that. We're receiving money for Blake. All this additional state revenue sharing is going to decrease the amount of lost revenue that we can claim from the recovery fund.
but that is
So-
gonna be one-time money though, right?
Yes, but according to the American Rescue Plan, we cannot adjust for one time or for things that expenditures are causing due to legislation. We don't get to factor that out. We just have to say, here's how much we got, and here's the growth rate that we're allowed, and back into the number. So that's one of the comments that was given to US Treasury as they work on the final rule, but we doubt it will change. So a little less, I still think that we'll be able to claim lost revenue in the next 3 years, but it won't be as much as we got in this first calculation. Then we have maintenance level changes in the budget. Again, staff are working on scrubbing these numbers. And by the way, offices and departments have done a phenomenal job this year, in particular about adjusting revenues to be more realistic. So I really appreciate the work that all of the finance people have done on the budget this year. So we've got new revenue coming in for Blake. We have other revenue adjustments in maintenance level, and then a small amount of revenue tied to policy expenditures. So future years, while not growing at a robust rate, will increase, but you see it doesn't increase a lot because of the adjustments to some of the one-time money that we're receiving this year. On the expenditure side, if you're ready to flip, to the base budget, I've assumed the kind of traditional at least 3% in reversions. And then salary increases at 1.5% or 2.5% per year.
Okay, I have a question about that too.
Yep, go ahead.
How are we accounting for the cost for inflation? I mean, it looks like inflation is kind of getting carried away. I know. You notice it in the grocery store and the gas station, and I don't even think fuel is figured in on it, but I mean, it is taking place, and how are we gonna be able to cover for that? I don't know, our bargaining situations, are we all locked in already, so they're gonna come out on the short end of the stick? Is that kind of where we're at?
Yeah, our contracts have a limit of 2.5%, and that's what is reflected.
Regardless of, there's no openers in there for.
We've had a low and a high, and most of the bargaining units have a 2.5%.
But
Right.
That is a
there's nothing in there for a crazy spike in inflation.
No.
Okay.
No. However, only some of your contracts include this cap, and that's why we put 2.5% in. We are acknowledging the union cap. We're applying that to all staff.
Yeah, good clarification.
But it could be more or less depending on what your decision is. This is the current assumption.
Is there any process that takes into consideration, maybe we're gonna have a smaller workforce sometime in the near future because of the whole COVID thing? Is
So
that?
Commissioner, I don't think we are having a smaller workforce.
No, I'm just saying the potential of having a smaller workforce. Is that
The
even
only
part of
thing
the
I've seen is growth in
conversation?
FTEs.
Pardon?
I have seen no drop in FTEs.
Oh.
We keep funding more and more FTEs, not less.
Oh, okay, I'm just wondering if that was part of the equation, that's all.
No, I'm just curious as to what you see that it will be a decrease in the workforce in the future.
I just wonder if this whole COVID thing isn't gonna drive people away, some of the requirements, that's all. I just wondered if that was even thought about. No, okay,
We've seen an increase in FTEs.
okay.
That's part of the request.
I mean, a lot of places, lots of work signs out there, help wanted signs, that are still there. I know
That's not
that,
changing the workload. I mean,
oh no,
as an example, the clerk,
workload's not gonna change, but they're having a hard time filling the clerk's position.
Yeah, but they're gonna keep working till they fill it, because they still need to get work done in the court system.
It's the difference between a vacant position and an occupied position, but it's still our budgeted position.
Yeah, okay, I just wondered if
Right.
any consideration on that, that's fine.
And yes, there is a consideration, Commissioner. See this reversion amount? It's generally driven by vacancies. In general, this reflects offices and departments who have vacancies.
Okay.
That's a
Okay.
large part of that. So yes, this worksheet does reflect some vacancy rate. Okay, all right. So next we see the $1 million for law enforcement and criminal justice. That's going to be a one-time expenditure in 2022. Then we have maintenance level changes. The very interesting thing about maintenance level is that there were a ton of technical changes, taking out one-time expenditures, adjusting for things. And again, finance staff did an amazing job this year of really taking a critical look at their budgets and figuring out, oh, I have appropriation authority here I've never used. This money would have been for a grant that I'm no longer receiving, and they cleaned their budget. So very appreciative of the work that finance staff across the county have done, which is why maintenance level is decreasing by $2.4 million, even though the interfund costs have gone up. And then those adjustments carry into 2023. And then policy level changes. I'm going to come back to policy level. I have included an assumption that should the board approve moving into the 3000 Pacific building, here's the annual cost of lease and utilities in that building. And then once I had all those numbers laid in, I made an estimate of how much the board can afford to spend in future years. Policy level requests are roughly $15 million a year in the ensuing biennium. And you certainly would not be able to afford $15 million in new spending. However, I believe that the board does have capacity to authorize a little over $2 million in new spending. That brings you to ending fund balance that slowly decreases over time, but becomes pretty stable out in the future years and maintains very close to the 2 months of reserve that the board has adopted as a target for the general fund. So this forecast shows that the county is in a very good financial position.
Could I ask you one question on the Pacific lease, the 3000 building on Pacific lease? It seems like that number was like, I don't know, I'm gonna say 1.6.
Yeah, I've got 1.6 here, not 1.6. Yep, it was 1.6. I've assumed that we would have to add additional parking capacity. We've got early amounts from the contractor of what it would cost to have additional parking available for the county and the citizens. So I've also assumed that there's inflation in utilities, and I've just put a little bit of a buffer in there in case we should need it in future years.
Okay, thank you.
So that.
So if I'm just reading this right, so if the 1.7 for Pacific was not there, then that could potentially be incorporated in policy level changes, although one of the policy level changes we would need is more space somewhere.
That's right.
Or something for all these new employees. So just to kind of get a sense of scale there. Okay, go ahead, sorry.
Yep, no, that's all from me.
Okay, is that the presentation then, Miro, that we needed for today?
Yep, no decisions, this is just to give you a preview of what is coming in more details on the week of September 7th. In the week of September 7th, Robin will formally present the draft preliminary budget to you on September 7th, and then the work sessions will be September 8th and 9th, where we'll get into more detail. And after that, there's many work sessions already scheduled. They will have the opportunity to dive into way more detail than you see today.
So my calendar shows just a half an hour on the 7th and then 7 hours on the 8th. Is that accurate?
Yep.
Okay.
It will be a lunch break in there for you to have lunch.
And then, because we're canceling the board meeting for the 7th.
Yeah.
Is there a reason why we wouldn't get a head start on that on Tuesday afternoon?
You want to start the conversation on the 7th or?
Well, I'm just seeing a big block of time Tuesday afternoon and then all day, a long arduous day on Wednesday, which,
It's Wednesday,
And
Thursday.
Thursday.
Today's-
and Thursday.
Today.
So I don't know,
It's Thursday.
it just seems like we're all here for agenda setting in the morning. If we could spend a couple hours on the afternoon, it might get us a head start, unless the staff needs that afternoon to get ready.
We would appreciate that additional time.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, well then that takes care of item 1. Then we'll go to item 2. Oh, no, we're gonna go to the
It's just
recovery
a
plan.
Recovery plan. This is, I presented to you early in the year, somewhat of an umbrella as to what I call buckets. Within the buckets, you already made some preliminary decisions on some of the most significant areas. So what you will hear from Robin today is a proposal as to how the next allocation for the board's consideration moving forward. And also she will walk you through this actual recovery plan, which is a requirement by the federal government for us to provide. Robin?
Yes, thank you, Romero, and thank you for allowing me some time this morning to review these documents with the board. I want to apologize that this is coming to you with not a lot of time to review, but we've had a lot going on. So first, I'm going to walk through the proposals. As you know, we have been gathering requests for funding. You've heard many of them. I've been collecting them on a whiteboard and I have now put them on this page for you. Anything with a check are items that you have already committed to, and any items with a blank are under consideration, but we have pretty firm numbers. Anything with a question mark are suggestions, and we have very rough estimates at this time of what we might have to spend to do these things, but we wanted to put the numbers in front of you today. So as you can see very quickly, here is your commitment to Thurston Strong and United Way. You have earmarked $5 million for broadband. Here are the 2 positions in the auditor's office and commissioner's office for administration of these awards. You committed in the first budget amendment $275,000 for a body scanner at the jail. And I believe they've submitted the RFP for your approval to go forward with that. We've earmarked $500,000 to update the website because the citizens' access to our services on the internet is hindered due to our outmoded website. District Court needs security. Yep.
Before you leave the check mark section, where's the agricultural programs that we authorized?
That is part of Thurston Strong.
But we also set aside $1 million to sort of be considered for an additional piece of the agricultural support. I don't see that on here.
Ag, market reset. There should be an additional $1 million for ag.
We granted everything on the sheet except for $1 million related to a labor support piece, and Stephen Bramwell said that he needed to flesh out the activities, and so the board we didn't deny it, but we didn't approve that $1 million. I'm just wondering how we kind of kept that for further fleshing out. And the ag committee's made a different proposal about that money, but in any case, it should be accounted here somewhere because the board.
Okay, I'll look into that. Thank you for bringing that up because the Thurston Strong plan includes 2.1 million for the agricultural market.
Oh, okay, so we only allocated 1.1 million.
Yeah, that's the set aside, is within the Thurston Strong.
So I would think that should not be a check mark, but a question mark.
So you want-
Okay.
Okay,
So
so,
they should say 9 million for Thurston Strong and 1 million for the agricultural labor support, question mark.
we can split that, yeah.
Yes, I will separate those out.
Just to clarify what we decided, thank you.
No, that's excellent, and that's exactly why I need people to review these things. Okay, so, heading down the list, district court, in response to COVID need for physical distancing, we moved their probation down to the admin area of the old jail. They need security cameras. It's a very small amount of money, but it is COVID related. Public health, we are concerned that eventually FEMA will stop funding the vaccine or other efforts. We have earmarked $1 million in that event should public health need it. If everything keeps being funded in future years, you can definitely reallocate this $1 million. PPE for long-term care facilities, the state has delegated, if you will, responsibility to provide PPE to our long-term care facilities to the counties. So the cost now falls on us, and we've earmarked $100,000 for that purpose.
Are we getting money from Commerce to deal with that?
No,
Okay.
Commissioner, no, we're not. So that's why it's on this list.
But in the event that we get money, this will be an option for the board to reallocate.
That's absolutely true. If we can identify other funds, we'll scoop up what's not spent on this list and bring you more proposals. Water and sewer projects you've seen for Tamashan and for Boston Harbor, 7.3 million. Video court.
Can I stop you there?
Yes.
Is that, so when we first got the initial, Ramiro's initial buckets or whatever, it was kind of vague.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, and I think it might have been smaller. So I'm wondering, is this 7.28 now more specifically tied to these are the projects that we're gonna do and these are the costs that we're gonna need, or is this still kind of a vague guesstimate?
No, Public Works, Jennifer provided a specific set of projects, and that is the amount. So
For Boston Harbor and Tamashan?
yeah, it's just
Right.
specifically what they're hoping to do if the board approves, obviously.
Right, and again, these are proposals. We're not asking today for a commitment to these funding amounts, but these are the proposals that we have so far. And we will get you more details. You'll see more details in the plan that we review in a moment. All right, so video court in jail housing units. As you know, we've seen a few outbreaks at our jail, COVID outbreaks. And when that happens, as you've heard, the jail pretty much locks down and it brings the justice system to a halt. The proposals we've heard from, this is a joint proposal from Public Defense and Corrections. They think if we install video court equipment in the housing units, and there's areas where we can do that, that the defendants who are in the jail could continue with their court appearances with far less movement in the jail, and we could continue the court system even during an outbreak. So that's what the whole video court in jail housing units is all about. I do not have an estimate yet. I plugged $1 million in here. It could be less, it could be more, but it's a placeholder. Affordable housing, you've heard from Ramiro, $9 million. Gonna pause there if you have any questions about that.
Is that through, what group is handling that? On that 9 million? Who is handling that?
Romero?
Are you asking, this is in coordination with the Regional Housing Council?
Yeah,
Is that what you're
that's-
asking?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
It's the
yeah.
Regional Housing Council.
Okay.
Yeah, and it is an opportunity to pull all the ARP funds from all the jurisdictions to do a series of projects. And in fact, I'm working on a couple of options that at some point we're going, and in fact, the Regional Housing Council just yesterday at their meeting suggested a project. I will be bringing that for your consideration. They will be part of that.
Are the other entities contributing the like amount?
Well, they don't have the same allocation as the county has.
No, I know.
The county has 56 million, but I believe there is a commitment to allocate significant, most of their ARP funding to this
At
effort.
some point, will we see that? See that commitment?
Yeah, they have made a written commitment, at least from the city of Lacey, we have received that, and you received a lot
Right,
on
but I
that.
mean, the total deal. We keep talking about this as a regional issue, so I wonder, is everybody in the region participating and to what extent?
The only, what I can assure you is the Regional Housing Council, the representatives from the cities are having those conversations, there is a commitment. So
we'll be hearing something back on that before we get final authorization on this?
no, because there's a lot of projects that, and again, this is just a placeholder.
Okay.
This
I
is
guess
just a
the point on the
placeholder.
question follow-up is, do we know where the cities are in their process of what we're doing right here in terms of allocating their ARP money? Do we know where they're at?
No,
Um,
no, I don't.
I mean, there was because Lacey was advocating for, I think, it seemed like Lacey was advocating for even a more aggressive percentage. I heard the mayor of Tumwater talk about 20%. I don't know what Olympia's doing, never heard them say one thing or another. 9 out of 56 is like 16% or something. So I think what the commissioner's asking is how concrete are we gonna be
how
about it? Is
concrete,
everybody
yeah.
gonna put 16% of their ARP money toward this, or 20% or whatever, so that we're all in the same dog in the fight, so to speak?
Yeah, I believe that is the case, Commissioner, but again, to get the specific plans from each of the cities, there is no way that I can give you a date as to when they're gonna be done. That's out of my control. And again, this is just a placeholder. As projects come along, suggestions for you to consider, you have a bucket as to what you can approve those.
Okay.
That's really the purpose of this. I'm not here to say that $9 million will be project A, B, and C. We're not at that point yet.
Okay, that's fine.
Am I right, though, this might be a Robin question, I don't know, but am I right that the allocation formula was kind of different for the cities than the county? So like, it's not just like, we have this many people, so we got this number, and Olympia has this many people. Like, counties got more, if I remember right, than cities, because we have more obligations with respect to public health and other things.
And that is some point.
Yes.
In fact, the city of Lacey initially had an indication that we'll receive a certain amount of money. When the actual came down to the deposit, it was quite a bit less. So, and I think that's what you're referring to.
I'm just speculating that, everybody giving 20%, for example, it might not make perfect sense because we all have different sort of responsibilities with that money. I definitely agree with Commissioner Edwards that we want it to be collective and everybody putting skin in the game, so to speak, but it may not need to be like precisely X percentage. I don't know. I haven't heard any argument about that among the cities, but I guess I'm open to thinking about different ways to structure it because we didn't get our ARPA money on the same terms.
So, and for instance, this is just, this is a placeholder.
Yeah.
If I may, again, when projects come, if you see the cities don't participate to the level of you have the position and the decision not to support that project
Right.
using our funds.
Okay,
If by next year, the $1 million is still in place and we have not utilized for this purpose, that goes back to your decision as to where you want to allocate it.
okay.
Okay.
All right, keep going, Rob, I'm sorry.
Okay, no, this was great discussion. So the next item on the list is capacity, and I need to spell out the acronym. That is the Community Action Council. As you know, we are funneling a lot of rental assistance money through the Community Action Council. They also provide other services such as energy assistance and weatherization programs to our citizens. We are probably going to push about $60 million through the CAC, and we want to support them to ensure that they have sufficient capacity to manage the huge amount of money and what we believe will be an influx of applications when the eviction moratorium expires. So we have put a placeholder here in the event that the CAC needs support to ensure capacity.
So, and I think you keyed on that, Robin, the rental assistance and utility assistance is coming from the federal government as well as from the Department of Commerce. This is not part of the ARP proposal.
Right,
It's a different funding source that's coming parallel to that.
right.
Just in case, right?
No,
In
this
case there's a
500,
problem on
this
rental.
500,000 is just in case to help
Right.
Community Action Council to spend the upcoming $28 million additional.
Yeah. Okay. Next item on the list is something you're very familiar with. That is the court backlog. There are many components that we need to fund of the backlog. We're working on how to properly allocate those costs. But early projections show that the cost over the few years is going to be $8.5 million. Lost revenue, as I was talking earlier, we're able to calculate lost revenue based on a very specific calculation that we've been given by US Treasury. We use the GFOA calculator, which is widely accepted and acceptable to US Treasury. So we know we can claim what we calculate using that format. And not quite 2.5 million this year. I expect it won't be as much in future years. And so I have earmarked $9 million. Could be more, could be less, but this is the placeholder for that money. That money would be deposited into the general fund and is available for your use on any government purpose, except there are 3 exceptions. You cannot use it to pay down current debt. You cannot use it to put in a rainy day fund, and you cannot use it to put in a pension fund. Any other use is eligible.
Let me ask a question on that. What about supplanting? How do they look at that? And,
Doesn't matter.
huh?
For that 9 million, we can use it for any government purpose.
And I think you key right on the key word, and I think we have not been using that word really, but this is an allowable.
Okay, no, I just raised the issue, that's all.
Yep.
Okay.
The
That's
next
not
item.
about it.
The next item is support for our EMS service. You've heard from Kurt Harden that they are experiencing extreme call volumes and wait time at our hospitals. And that is causing delayed response to 911 calls. So we are providing some funding for extra help to support and reduce the delay in response.
I guess I'd comment on that I don't think that's gonna be adequate if things continue the way they're continuing.
You're probably right, Commissioner, that will probably need to be more money. So the last item on the list is county costs. I've earmarked 1.5 million. It is a complete wag. What we've seen so far, we have to purchase COVID supplies for our employees. We're doing additional cleaning of our facilities that has to continue under L&I rules. We're making accommodations for physical distancing and other types of accommodations to keep our employees safe. There are administrative costs to these programs. All of these are allowable. So I have earmarked 1.5 million for additional administrative costs. For a grand total to date of $55.9 million, leaving you with about $500,000 left to spend. So that's the current layout. And again, these are placeholders and proposals. Very few items are already committed to by the board. The rest are strictly for your consideration.
Okay, I do have a follow-up comment on that, on the EMS 150. I mean, if we already know that it's not gonna be adequate, why don't we take something from somewhere and put the figure there so we've got something we know we can fall back on, even if it comes up out of the 548,000. I don't have the answer to that. I just know I think we're gonna run into a substantial problem. I'll be giving a report on the EMS problem here in a few minutes when we move into.
For now, would you like to see, with the concurrence of the board, to up it to 300?
Yeah.
This is just.
I mean,
This is just set
I
aside.
would rather be higher than lower on this particular issue. Because I think it's a reality when we start, you know, depending on how things go here, whether it's the whole COVID thing and it's a response to the citizens' needs and all the extra 911 call-ins, or if we're gonna be working personnel over, because I mentioned the letter that EMS sent to the governor. I don't know what's gonna come of that. I don't know if there's gonna be a policy change. If we have half the FTEs available, what are we gonna do? I don't know, work them 24 hours a day, or I don't know the answer to it, but I just don't think this is adequate.
So this is what's reflecting is conversations with Kurt, and this is to address the current need in 2021. You're right, it can spill over into 2022, but this really reflects his analysis to what he needs to have that additional surge in his personnel for this year.
With all due respect, I think Kurt does a heck of a good job, but I think he's holding back a little bit because this is a bigger problem, I think.
So Kurt is holding back even more because his estimate was around 65,000. I already doubled it.
Yeah, okay, well.
And again, I think that you're absolutely right. We may need to put more here. So this, again, 150,000 was an estimate that I put in. I am happy to make it more. Just tell me what you'd like to see here.
Let's just suggest that the next time the board addresses this, we have Kurt on hand so that we can, I mean, I don't know much about it. I don't know what activities are contemplated. I mean, EMS support, I don't know what that means. So I'm not sure, I don't have any foundation to guesstimate what would be needed when I don't even know the types of things that are gonna be needed to address the problem.
So the underlying issue is the EMS personnel, they go to the hospital taking a patient. And since there is a backlog in the hospitals, they cannot admit that patient right away. So what's happening is EMS personnel has to stay within the ambulance and provide this bridge care until they can be admitted to the hospital, which as a result, they are not able to respond to the next call.
But how do we fix that? The hospital, I mean, we can dial up more ambulances and it'll just be a bigger line at the hospital. I mean, it's out of our control in a sense.
Well, in a way, but there is an obligation for us to respond to the additional call for the next call that is coming, and this is trying to address that. It's trying to address the call volumes that we have. So you're right, I mean, it is a systemic issue, but we're not gonna be able to resolve the systemic issue with the ARP funds. We're trying to mitigate what we can control. And what we
Right.
can control at this point is
And-
the EMS personnel.
Right, and by adding staff, I believe you're absolutely correct. It will create a longer line at the hospital. However, there will be someone with that person that needs
Right.
emergency care rather than the person sitting at home waiting for the ambulance to come. That's the difference.
So they'll be in line in an ambulance getting care, not at home not getting care.
Yeah. I
but,
think
I mean-
that's the bottom line.
I still just, I mean, if that's the issue, then yeah, 150,000 is chump change. I mean, probably each one of those people with all the equipment they need is, if a sheriff needs $250,000 just for one person with their equipment and training, I can't imagine a medical personnel wouldn't be the same.
And
So what is Kurt coming up with 65,000? What was that gonna pay for? That Kurt proposed
personnel, not
65,000?
equipment.
What?
No, we're not gonna be buying ambulances.
And it's not even close to what I think the need is. I mean, and others on the EMS council, Kurt's trying to be a very responsive manager of his
So
budget.
Kurt has worked with I think 3 of the fire districts who would bring extra help in to fill in the gap and address some of the need. And we'll get Kurt to be part of the next conversation.
I think we're gonna have bays at fire departments filled up with patients at some point in time. That'll be the drop-off point or some darn thing. They gotta do something, because right now at the emergency rooms and in the hallways, it's all backed up.
And you're right, it's a systemic issue.
No, I think, just to be clear, I think you're 100% right. So I'm with you. Rather than me pulling a number out of the sky, I'd rather hear from Kurt and be able to ask him questions about kind of more specifics so that we can create a meaningful number, not just two commissioners speculating.
I will ask Kurt to be part of next Tuesday morning. We're not going to be bringing this back, and I'm going to ask you. I'm going to tell you why we need to have this conversation back again on Tuesday. This is just the a preview, and so Kurt was expecting 65,000. We up it, just to make sure there's a cushion, but it will be more. He should be able to respond to that as well. So.
Right. So let's move on. And I just want to walk you very, very quickly through this recovery plan. This document is in super draft form. I've got a lot of work left to do. That's how I'm spending tomorrow. But I wanted you to have it so you know what to expect on Tuesday. The county is required as a condition of accepting the money to submit this plan to the US Treasury and to post it on our website by next Tuesday, August 31st. So here's what's included in the plan. This second page is simply instructions. I've left the instructions in at this stage so that you can see what is required of us. But I'll be stripping out all the instructions in the version that you see on Tuesday. And I'll update the table of contents on Tuesday. Here's the executive summary. It is a high-level overview where we're required to touch on the major things we're doing. And what I've put in here is that we're going to take the next 8 months to refine the plan so that the board is not pushed into a corner on making allocations at this point. And we've been told that this type of language, we were told by federal representatives that it is fine at this stage, that the plan is draft, and that we indicate that the allocations, any allocation shown are preliminary. So it includes information on allocations that you've made to date and items that you're considering. I've not yet identified the key outcome goals. Those will be in by Tuesday. Then we have to go into more detail on the use of funds. And what you'll see in this section is by program, a little more information on each of the things that we just talked about. I'm still filling in these. Not all of them are reflected here. I need to add the 16 items that you've authorized for Thurston Strong and United Way. But many of the other items are on the list. The numbering scheme is dictated by US Treasury, as you'll see later in the document. So there's all of those descriptions. We have to explain in this document how we will promote equitable outcomes through the use of this money. It's equity to underserved and unserved populations, to marginalized parts of our society. And you'll see that US Treasury is asking for very specific information. This first report will have a very high level description of what the county is currently doing in the area of equity, and more will come in future reports. Under community engagement, we are required to reach out to the community and get their input on this plan and how the board will allocate the funds. So we have included intent to do a survey. I'll be working with Romero and Whitney and Megan to stand up a survey, and then we'll have to determine if we need additional outreach measures to reach out to, again, traditionally underserved groups. Under labor practices, that's going to be a simple statement that we follow state laws on public works, including prevailing wage, building code, and other regulations on large public work projects. Use of evidence is very interesting and in hot debate right now. The federal rules require that the counties use evidence-based interventions or stand up rigorous program evaluations to build evidence for a major portion of the social service supports that are paid for with Recovery Act funds. This is not a reasonable requirement and would be extremely expensive. And US Treasury's response to that comment has been data gathering is an allowable cost with the money. But it would divert money from the people that need it most. So we are examining, and we are in the process of examining the proposed programs, what we can use as evidence-based, and we will present that in a future version of this report. Here's the table of expenses. I think we've spent about $2,000 or $3,000 so far in this first report, and all administrative in nature. So this is going to be pretty empty. Then, see, this is their numbering system that we have to follow. The project inventory, each of the projects that you see listed above have to be stated again in great detail, including total amount of the project that includes other funding sources, project overview, a detailed description, a link to the website, evidence-based analysis, performance measures, all of that has to be included for every one of the projects that you fund. So a lot of this will be very preliminary, and a lot of these programs will say in development or to be determined if funded by the board. The performance report has to, again, be performance measures that we're working on collecting. I'm working with Whitney and Jenica on what these can be. And this is why I was really excited to see the Thurston Strong presentation, because they already have performance measures for many of the programs that you've approved. And we'll just cut those right into this report. And that is the end. So you can see this is an onerous and massive undertaking to be able to report to US Treasury. And what you have before you is an extremely early draft. I've got a lot to fill in, and you'll have a much better version on Tuesday, just before it needs to be posted.
This evidence issue, is this, I mean, are there certain types of programs that are subject to this, or is it like over top of everything? I mean, if we're spending
No.
$7 million on upgrades for a water treatment system, I mean, what is it, how does that even?
You key exactly on the challenge of this requirement.
So
Absolutely.
the reporting guidelines that I'm holding up right here that are heavily earmarked. There is on page 31 a list of all of the programs, the categories that US Treasury has provided, and those are annotated. So for example, only some of the public health categories must be evidence-based, such as anything we would spend on mental health services, but vaccination, testing, contact tracing, those do not need to be supported by evidence-based study. It looks like all of the negative economic impacts are required to have, the aid to tourism, travel, and hospitality does not need to be evidence-based, but small business assistance and nonprofit organizations do need to be evidence-based. Most of the social services are evidence-based requirements. The infrastructure is not. Revenue replacement is not. So
It's not, I mean, just reading into that, from what you just presented, it sounds like what they're trying to get at, which is understandable, is like, okay, the things that the nexus is obvious, we're not gonna worry about, but the types of programs where the nexus might be a little murkier, seems like what they're probably just going for is something to justify the nexus between, I mean, they're using evidence-based, they're using this terminology that sounds quite onerous, but probably it's really just about what is the nugget of data or information that seems to justify the connection between the expenditure and the relief or the pandemic and all that. So maybe it's not quite as bad as it sounds, just based on what, the categories.
right. Well, we're trying to look around to see what already exists that we can piggyback on or reference or model to be able to meet these requirements, but not every, I don't think that we're going to be able to do every single one. So we're taking those into consideration as we prepare proposals for the board on what to fund.
So on Tuesday, I will bring this again for your consideration with, I will ask the board in a couple of questions for you. Before you start thinking about this, there's a couple of items in here, this sheet. there is timing is of the essence for you to concur and moving into a check mark. And that is the EMS support, whether it's 150 or whatever that is, because Kurt needs to move forward on that aspect. And the other one is the website that you have in here. And that's something that we need to move forward on that as soon as possible. The rest is just, I will ask you just your concurrence on the overall plan. And I guess think about this, there's a lot of steps that needs to take in order to start tapping in some of that stuff. You know, the core backlogs will already have a good process in place. You talk about the affordable housing. That is still a lot of conversation needs to have, but at least have that as a bucket. And things will change over time. But I will ask also on Tuesday, in addition for you to consider putting a check mark to the website and the EMS support, is to concur and submit in this draft plan to the federal government, because we need to submit that by the following day.
Are we gonna hear something about, we got a minute to talk about website?
Yeah, go ahead.
We wanna get there. I'm not the person to talk to about website, but I do hear from the community when they try to do business with the county that it's not very friendly, whatever that means, okay? So, I mean, I think it's crucial to open government that we be accessible to the community. So I guess if Megan tells me that, well, to do that, we need to do X, Y, and Z and whatever, I think that's a big piece of us staying in touch with the community to provide adequate services, which do cover everything we're trying to do with the CARES Act, for an example.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the pandemic has put us in the position to really bubble to the surface the gaps that we have on our website.
Yeah.
And we have gaps.
So what do we need to know about that? Because I think it's something we need to pay attention to.
So
That's my
there is
advice.
already a request for proposals that we issued, because this website was part of a plan the board approved already, and went to go with a request for proposals. The pandemic hit and everything just stalled. So at this point, what we ask is really for the board to consider supporting this website to continue with the program that we already started.
So,
But using the care, or the relief money, not.
Because there is an excess.
We also will pair this up with 200,000 that's been collected by IT to date, because this project is pretty significant.
Did I answer your question? I'm sorry.
yeah, I mean, I think we need to do it, I guess is where I'm at on it.
So I will ask for that decision point on Tuesday. And at that time, Commissioner Mejia will be part of that. Hopefully I can catch her with all this additional information. So there's the two elements, the two items out of this list that I would like the board to give us a solid direction to go ahead. The rest is the concept. The rest is buckets. There's a lot of information that needs to come before you, but at least this will be included on the report as an overall draft plan.
Okay,
Great. Thank you.
okay, we've got 9 minutes for boards and commissions. Commissioner Edwards, you got something to report?
Really, on the EMS report, I don't think I need to spend any more time on that. That's kind of I've mentioned there was a letter written to the governor.
What was that letter about? Was it the governor's letter was about this issue about the hospital backlog, or?
Well, it has it having to do with creating more of a problem by, and let me encapsulate it as best I can, of not having an out for maybe testing in lieu of the vaccination. I think that was the biggest
So
portion of it.
I just asked Kurt as to the status of the letter. I think it's getting to be finalized, and as soon as we get.
It's not sent yet?
It's not sent yet.
Does the EMS council know that?
Well, as of yesterday, they were working with the chair, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Sent out.
Okay,
Because
it was
I
a
asked-
pretty hot topic, I
Yeah.
know.
So I asked where that letter was, so it's coming. So, but the gist of the letter is asking the governor, because the governor vaccination requirements included all the EMS personnel, and it was contingent for employment for those who didn't, who are not vaccinated, they will lose their employment.
And it also has to do with the hospital and nurses and
So I
different
think
ones,
that,
you know, that are gonna be, we don't have enough nurses now. We don't have enough EMTs now. And if it was to follow through,
and I think the letter makes the suggestion that perhaps the governor will provide a testing as an alternative.
Similar to what you-
Vaccination,
what we
similar
do.
to what the county already has in place.
Uh-huh.
And the argument behind it is because a lot of EMT personnel may quit if the vaccination requirement stays in place. I think that's the gist of the letter, I believe.
no, that's it.
Yeah, and so as soon as I get a copy, I will share it with the board.
Okay. So that's gonna be my only report on that. I do wonder where we at on the census, so that we can move ahead on this.
It just
other
happens
issue.
in my Rotary meeting yesterday, we just got a presentation from the state. And they have already received the data, and I believe hopefully they're gonna be releasing that data early September.
What's the big secret about all this?
I don't know.
Robin,
You have another-
I have an update as well.
Go
Okay,
ahead.
Our GIS, our geodata folks have access to the data, but it is raw data that will be difficult for us to use. We think we'll have formatted data available at the end of August, and we will be able to meet the timeline that we presented to the board, the port, and the PUD in earlier meetings. So we are right on track
Timeline for what?
to have the redistricting of county commissioner districts.
Okay, so when you say we, you mean the auditor?
No, we as staff.
So we, the county commissioner's office, Whitney, Pearsall, Jamie and I are doing the moving of the precincts to make the population even. That gets approved by the Board of County Commissioners, and then the auditor does her thing to align the voting precincts. And this was the plan to move whole precincts to balance the population.
Okay, I guess I thought the auditor staff did that, the way they do the precinct adjustments, and then they present it to the board.
No.
No, there's a different mission, the auditor's office does related to the precinct adjustment because of based on the voting members of that district, citizens. Here's a little bit different. The redistricting is an action by the board. And we have already embarked on that process. And the office of the county commissioner's staff has done this previously and redistricting every 10 years. And we presented to you a plan over 2 months ago where we walk you through the schedule, where we walk what the plan will be. And also you may recall give you an indication as to where within the urban, within the city of Lacey is where we may need to shift entire precincts to balance the population among the 3 commissioner districts. So the auditor's office gets to get to work after the board approves the redistricting.
And we're working very closely with the auditor's office in this, but it's commissioner staff doing it.
So did I answer your question, Commissioner?
Yeah, I just didn't realize that we were doing that, and I didn't realize who was doing that piece.
It's one of the many services your commissioner office staff provide.
Okay,
And in fact, I provided the same approach that we provided to the board. I gave a presentation to the Port of Olympia Commission as well as the PUD Commission. So they are aware of the schedule, they are aware of the steps that we need to take. And also I gave them an indication in the area as to where most likely we have to shift precincts to balance the population.
right, so I've been lobbying the wrong three people to get my piece of West Olympia back. I keep talking to Mary Hall about it.
We heard you, Commissioner.
It's like, I think District 3 is probably losing population relative to Districts 2 and 1, and so my district will probably keep growing.
I think if you see the north side, the north and for both districts will kind of shift
Yeah,
the lines.
from
And,
3 will grow.
And as you recall, there's a few objectives that we needed to keep. Obviously, by the shifting of those precincts, we will not be districting out a sitting commissioner.
I don't think there's any risk of that. But I saw yet another presentation about the congressional districts and again, projecting that I'm gonna be redistricted into CD6.
Yeah, that was the gist of the presentation yesterday that I attended.
Oh, so that's another one, yeah.
It probably is the same that you saw. And there are a lot of conversation on legislative district 35 and 10 and how everything is shifting because some are gaining too much population, some are losing. So the whole shifting, if this is, I think somewhat of a challenging process to go along the commissioners' districts, what they have to do on the congressional district, those are jobs. Congressional and legislative districts.
Okay, anything else for external boards?
One quick thing. I'm curious, I'm hearing more and more about fentanyl overdoses. And mostly it's young people getting a hold of something they didn't think was quite so nasty. And I wonder if we could have a update on that. Now, and I don't know who that would come from, if it'd be the Board of Health,
Board of Health,
a combination maybe with the coroner's office, but maybe the coroner works with other affiliates around the state that could give us a little broader perspective of this problem, because we generally don't find out about this. I mean, we have suspicions when we go there and there's a young person and, they might even have a little fentanyl in their pocket or something, but you don't know the real cause until you get that lab analysis back. That takes a period of time, so there's always a delay. And I know we're talking about opioid overdoses, quite a bit are picking up. And I'm just wondering how much of that is directly related to fentanyl from a public health perspective. I think it's worth us knowing the answer to that as we think about the budgetary process as we move ahead. So just throw
I
that.
can talk to Shelley when we do agenda setting for Board of Health and suggest that.
Okay, whatever. Yeah.
I had one commissioner item. I just wanted to make the board aware, Ramiro's aware of this, but it's related to the communication I got from the West Thurston Fire Authority. So I got a communication from the chief there who was wondering about how the West Thurston Regional Fire Authority may apply for community impact contribution funds sent to Thurston County from the Chehalis tribe. My goal is to make up I'm reading from his email, so we all hear it. My goal is to make up a cost recovery deficit associated with the delivery of fire, rescue, and emergency medical service to the 14 Chehalis tribe commercial enterprise locations within the West Thurston Emergency Response Jurisdiction. I've been in contact with the Washington State Gambling Commission and the Chehalis tribe, who suggest that Thurston County decides how to distribute the community impact funds. This year, West Thurston will respond to approximately 200 emergency incidents on the Chehalis tribe's original reservation land and the tribal trust properties along I-5 and Highway 12. I'll be happy to meet with you or attend a board meeting to exhibit cost analysis and data that West Thurston community is foremost directly impacted by Chehalis tribal commercial development and therefore should become a recipient of community impact funds. So, given this proposal to meet with the board, I responded. Ramiro provided me with the breakdown of the money, which I forwarded on to Chief so that he could see what we get, which is, very minimal. And Ramiro said that our MOU is expired and we'd be entering into negotiations on that. I told the chief that maybe he could be part of that or give us some input at the time that we're trying to work out those details. And he said that was a great idea. He said, I welcome the opportunity to take part in a discussion regarding the new MOU. Although West Thurston does receive minimal funding from Medic One, it is the same as all the other jurisdictions and is not associated with community impacts. I also think it's justifiable for the fire branch and public safety to share in community impact contributions, as do Medic One and law enforcement. So Ramiro said that our very limited dollars here, which are showed in this chart, we have an understanding and it goes to sheriff and,
No, we have, the MOU is clearly outlines.
yeah,
That it goes to the sheriff and Medic One.
right. So they're wondering, should they be included?
So, and just to give, put in perspective, Commissioner, was what we receive is just about $25,000 a year from Chehalis Drive, thereabouts. So,
What do they think their capital outlay is to provide the service? Do they have an estimate?
He didn't give me that information.
I guess, on the CCs, I guess, I don't know who all got copies, but did this go to the Department of Interior by any chance? Because they oversee the whole BIA operation, and
No,
that's,
this is part of the tribal compact with the state to be able to run casinos.
oh, I know that, but the only reason I mentioned the BIA, because they oversee tribal activities. I mean, that's where the Bureau of Indian Affairs is located out of the Interior Department. And whenever there are issues like this that aren't adequately covered, that body should know about it. And whether we send a letter or the chief sends a letter, I suppose it makes more sense if we do. But before we do that, I would suggest that we talk to the Chehalis tribe and see if we can't rectify the problem.
We brought this
Before we
up
go
at
to
our
the
meeting.
well, there is an item that we have been working with Chehalis Drive for the last 4 years, and there's the fee for service. And the fee for service is what we really need to have a conversation with Chehalis Tribe as an overall the fee for service. And the fee for service is sheriff, the true cost of the
everything.
response, the true cost of the law and justice partners, the fire departments.
The minimal amount that we're given
So,
through that 2% deal or something, is,
So they,
to me, a joke.
we presented 4 years ago, somewhat of at least our perspective, you may recall this, Robin, what the fee for service will be. And there was a lot of pushback from the tribe at that point, but certainly we can bring this up every time that we have a joint meeting with them. Bringing this item as a potential.
Well, I think we just need to keep.
We started that 8 years ago.
So there you go, 8 years ago.
8 years ago, we started on that path.
Okay, well, I mean, there's a larger issue of the adequacy of the funding. Then there's the more narrow issue of, okay, we get 20,000. 10.6 goes to Medic One and 9.5 goes to the sheriff. The fire's saying, why aren't we included? We're doing the same amount of responding or, some equivalent number of responding. So that's really what the chief was asking me about. I was trying to take it up a level and saying, why don't we work together on trying to get a bigger piece of pie for.
That dollar amount ought to be 200,000 or something is what it should be.
Yeah, well, I don't know the answer to that.
I don't know, I mean, I'm just pulling that out of the
Well,
air.
the Chehalis tribe doesn't have any obligation to go up on that.
I know they don't have any obligation, but I think we should always include them in the discussion before you go to the next higher level. And it's not the state, it's BIA that oversees that.
Anyway, I'm just laying that out for the board's knowledge. I don't know when we would get to the point of dealing with this MOU, but I'd like to include the fire department in maybe a presentation on what their true expenses are would help us
That'd be
inform our
great.
discussions. So it's something for the future, maybe at a later point we could.
Right.
I know that the sheriff's office has contacted me in the past, asking how they can also get a greater share of this money. And we know that the amount does not cover the expenses of Medic One. So all parties are interested in an additional share.
And there's been past litigation on that water park down there that the county had that they lost, right? I mean, I don't know.
Right.
that when they were asking for that type of, revenue as part of the tax base, but that was denied because I think the ownership is 51%, the tribe.
That's correct.
Yeah, that's that.
You know, so, I mean, this has been talked about for years.
I'm just making the point that when I'm asked, why is Medic One and Sheriff sharing these and we're not considered, I don't have an answer. So if somebody can give me an answer to that, then I will communicate that, but it seemed to me that it was a reasonable question that I had no answer for. So that's all I'm saying.
It's the answer to that is lost in history because it was set up this way when I joined the county in 2010, and it's been part of the compact. But I believe you're free to negotiate it as you see fit.
Okay, that's all I got. 11:38, we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.